Hey everyone, uh, good day to you all. So this is the video as promised, supplementary video to help us to further understand the concepts that we discussed in our last lesson. And here I hope to, tear through a lot of the concepts here, like the where clause and, the logic, arithmetic operation, logic operations, and the other things that we also discussed. So here, what we'll be doing is exactly as promised. The first thing we'll be doing is to apply all of the things we learned on the DVD rental database in our last lesson. We'll be seeing how each of these things also apply to this new database, which is our Part1 data set. Okay. Then after we do that, so effectively we'll be starting from this area, which is select, using select statement to pull data, all right? And then we'll be ending down here. Then we'll continue in script 2, which is here. So we'll go through arithmetic operations and how to use, how to understand PEMDAS. This should affect our flow of, writing queries, how we can structure our queries. That's PEMDAS. I'll also explain what PEMDAS stands for. And we'll take this all the way down till we get to date functions. Okay. Yeah. So here we are.
I didn't understand that.
Without further ado, let's get started. So heading back to script 1. So let's start with using select statement to pull out data. Now, as already explained, by now you should already know what select statements do, or select statement does for us, which is it helps us to, to reach into our database and return the exact information we are looking for. So in this case, we have our select statement, we have our select clause here, and then we compose the rest of our statements here. So we have our select asterisk. Now we all know by now what asterisk stands for. It means we want to collect information about every single column in our table. In order to specify our table, we have our from, right? And then we specify our tables to be international breweries.Harvard. Okay. So if I go ahead and run this query, you should find all the information about Harvard displayed down below in our data output. So please go ahead and try that as well. Now let's take this a step further. Now we know how to call out all the information that we have on our database, as you can see down below. But how do we select individual columns to be displayed? Well, we still make use of our select statement. Okay, so like in this case, we have select and we specify the individual columns that we want to call out. So as you can see here, we want to call out the sales ID column, this brands column, as well as the emails column. Okay, so this gives us an idea of the emails and the sales ID of our sales rep, and also the brands, okay, of goods that they are responsible for transacting or selling. We can also add the cost as well, as you can see here. And then we are still specifying that this information is coming from the same table, which is our Part1 table, which is in international breweries. So let's go ahead, highlight this, and run or execute this query to see exactly what we want.
No exercise is being tracked right now.
So we can mix and match this however we want. Okay, we can decide we want, rather than sales ID, emails, and brands, we can decide we want sales ID, the actual names of the sales reps instead of their emails, and also the brands that they represent. Okay. So we can mix this as much as we want. So if we come down here, we see that it is quite similar as well. But here we are introducing something new. It's called an alias. An alias will help us to give a temporary name to any element of our database. For example, a column. If we want to rename a column, in the results, then we can go ahead and use an alias to do so. So let me show us what that stands for, what that means here. If I execute this exact query, you can see what we have here. We have sales_ID as the name of the derived column. And this is called the derived column because the actual column itself still exists in our database as sales_ID, right? And any changes we make to this result that we see here will not affect the original column that is present in our database. That is still safely stored. Now, this is regarded as a derived column because it is just a representation, okay? It is a representation of the exact thing that we have in our database. So we can decide to, meddle with this. We can decide to make some custom adjustments to it, such as applying an alias, like change the sales_ID to sales, to just sales, or we can change the cost to purchase, for example, and it's going to reflect as purchase. But changing this cost to purchase, we are going to need to use an alias to do so. And using an alias does not mean that we have successfully changed the actual name of this column on our database. What it means is that we have just assigned a new name or an alias, which stands for nickname. An alias, we have applied an alias to the derived column that is being displayed here. So let's try that out and see how it works. If I highlight this query and I run, we'll notice that this purchase here is the same as the cost. But because we have applied our alias, which is the as purchase here, we have applied our alias here. That is why it is now known, or it is now represented as a purchase column and not a cost column. Okay, or if we scroll down to our schema, and in our schema, we check out the table and we check out the cost table, and we check out all the columns, you can still see that our cost column is still named cost. So it hasn't changed its name. So an alias is used to give a temporary nickname or alias to any particular element. Now, this is not only limited to columns. We can equally do this for a table as well, right? We can decide to give an alias to the Part1 table and call it as P. Okay, so when we are joining tables together, for example, we can easily reference this table as P, as opposed to typing internationalbreweries.part1. You can just type P, right? And that's going to represent the entire table. So we haven't gotten to join yet, but I'll try and find an example to show us how this alias can work. But for now, let's stick to aliasing only our columns. Okay, select distinct. We talked about distinct because it helps us to remove excess and non-unique values from our data sets. Okay, so without distinct, let me go ahead and search for brands without distinct. So if I type select brands from international, see, this is quite a mouthful, actually. International breweries.part1. So I'm just simply going to copy this instead of typing it out all over again. Now, if I run this query, you notice what happens is that we have Budweiser here, which is the name of one brand, and we also have Budweiser here again, which is the name of the same brand appearing more than once. And I want you to take note of this green bubble that pops up whenever I execute the query. It contains some important information. Now we see that the number of rows affected here is 1047, which is 1047 rows. If I decide to execute this query that is here, the one that says select distinct brands, right? Notice that this distinct is the only difference between the query on line 88 and the query on line 86. Distinct is the only difference. And if I execute this query, you notice a huge difference, right? You notice that the number of brands has now reduced to 7 rows because we only have 7 brands. But these brands are reappearing or being duplicated multiple times, and is the reason why it appeared 1,047 times. So select distinct is important for us to check unique values. So with that understood, right, let's jump into where clause and see. We already talked about where clause in class in lesson 2. So let's jump into where clause on this database and see what we can do with the where clause. Now with the where clause here, if we decide that we want to display certain information, right? But we want to set up a condition whereby only brands, right, whose name is Hero, only the Hero brand, HERO, is going to be displayed in our results. We can equally do this as well. Okay, so for some context, I'm going to type here. You don't have to do this, or you can simply just copy, right, this same query. I just copied it up here. Now I'm going to remove the where clause or the where statement entirely, right? So what I'm going to do now is to execute this query without the where clause. And we can see, first of all, we have 1,047 results. We can see all the different, we can see all the different records that are being displayed. If you check under brands here, you notice that we have Trophy, Budweiser, Castlelight, Eagle Lager, Hero, right? We have so many brands displayed, including the Hero brand. But what we want is only the Hero brand displayed. Therefore, we then include the where clause, which is this. So if I copy this and place it under the exact same query, then I execute altogether, you notice a change. And that change we notice is, first of all, the number of records drops from 1047 to 149 records. And if we scroll down, we notice that only the Hero brands are being returned in our data output. That's because we have set up a condition in our where statement that only our brands should be what? Hero. Now, just like we talked about in our last lesson, we can equally introduce, by the way, this query and this query are the exact same. Okay, they're the exact same queries. So I am just typing some additional queries up top here. You don't need to do the same, but I would recommend for practice purposes that you should do that as well. Now I'm going to copy this query again, this exact query, and paste it here. And I want to show you one of the things we talked about in our last lesson about arithmetic operators and string operators. Now, the